Peter Michaels.
Patrick Bateman.
Now I have a question for you.
I'm nervous. Now, what?
You emceed an event this past weekend.
I did.
For the first time in a long time.
Yes, I did.
Maybe a full 2 years. Or did
There's been a
former
couple
coworker do
of
it?
things
Okay, yeah.
in there, in between. Very small events, but this was kind of a bit more of the usual kind of get up on stage and say, what the fuck is up, people?
You emceed the Bose Super Bowl thing. I think you watched the Super Bowl, right?
Yes.
Watch and listen and drink too.
Yes, I think there was a little bit of drinking going on.
Did it feel good? Were you nervous?
Yeah. Honestly, like when you don't do something for so long.
Yeah, of course.
And I am the type, like I really got to work, even just doing this, I got to like just kind of work everything through the gears before it comes out. Otherwise, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
So yeah, I sit there for a lot of I don't even really watch the game. What's next? What do I got to say? Who am I going to plug? What am I going to, especially after not doing it for 2 years.
Right.
And I'm happy to say, I don't think I fucked anything up too royally.
Now, I didn't hear anything like that.
Okay,
so,
good.
As someone who knows very little about football, were people disappointed about the result?
Do you want to know how little I know about football? And I don't very casual, but producer Ryan can attest to this as well because he was there. So it's the end of the first quarter, and I've watched football a touch, but I've never really fully understood how the 2-minute warning works in a football. The last 2 minutes, the way they operate the clock is different.
Yeah,
right?
I've never understood the
So
timing.
we had our first big contest that was ready to go to get up on stage that we are going to do between the first and the second quarter.
Yeah.
There's 28 seconds left in the first quarter, and the commercials come on. I'm like, okay, commercials, 28 seconds left in the quarter, and then we'll go up. And these commercials are taking forever.
Yeah.
Well, they run the clock. I didn't
During the commercials?
I must have, because they came back from commercials and it was the second quarter.
What a weird game, man. I don't understand it at all. Every time I try to watch,
there's a lot. Like I get it. I can follow along, but the one thing and people have even I had a couple of people explain it to me last night. I'm like, okay, well, we're gonna go at the end of the second quarter. Like, how do I not mess this up?
Yeah.
Well, if the play goes out of bounds, and if that's and if the shot clock goes down,
and then one of the refs throws a scarf onto the field, and that's supposed to mean something.
If there's 28 seconds left, just play the 28 seconds.
It's a interesting game.
So I don't know football that well either.
What did you think of the halftime show?
Well, the halftime show is pretty impressive.
So, I don't know all those songs.
Really?
Yeah.
But didn't you grow up through most of?
Eminem, sure. Snoop Dogg, a little bit. Dr. Dre, kind of. I was familiar with the songs that they played. 50 Cent, sure, whatever. I never paid attention to him.
Yeah.
Mary J. Blige, I didn't know those songs. Don't know if I've ever heard them. Yeah. Kendrick definitely knew that.
Which is so weird because that's definitely not my typical style of music. But
those songs were inescapable.
Oh, very true.
Then though, right? Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. No, it was very cool.
Production was great. Like the set design wasn't the most eye-blowing, whatever. It was whatever. It was kind of neat, but just it was the nostalgia, 100%.
Yeah, nostalgia. No, it was a good time. Lots of interesting stories to tell from there.
You know, it's funny, and I said to Ryan last night too that in my lifetime, things I thought I'd never see is I grew up with Metallica, and Metallica in the '80s was that bad band that only the kids on the wrong side of the tracks listen to, right? And watch them become completely mainstream and have their music played at hockey arenas and football stadiums across the whatever. Yeah. And then same thing, you're seeing Dre,
and Snoop Dogg,
NWA, big time mainstream in front of like it's cool to see how that's changed.
Totally. And it was in California, right?
Yes.
Okay, that adds up then. I was like, wow, this is very LA themed.
And you know what, like the biggest pop out of all the acts that played at Bose, I'm gonna say Eminem probably got the loudest pop.
Okay.
Probably, but I think at the stadium it would have been Dre.
Yeah.
At the end.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was pretty cool. Excellent production, I suppose. I'm curious to, we were watching and we're like, is there some lip syncing going on here, specifically with 50 Cent?
I think there was definitely some.
Which is funny because when you have a band, a music playing band, I don't think you can really lip sync your way through that, right?
It's tough.
Unless you're Maroon 5. Anyways, what's that? What were you going to say?
Do you have any Super Bowl halftime performances that you remember?
It's Prince.
Okay, good.
Just hands
good.
down.
I was thinking all last night, this is good. It was damn good, but it's not Prince.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's a strong argument why last night deserves to be on very high on a list. But yeah, just the whole story behind the Prince thing where they were like, hey, it's going to be dangerous what you want to do. And he was like, it better rain harder or whatever he said.
They said it's going to rain. He said, "Can you make it rain more?"
Yes, and they're like, "That's not how it works, Prince. You've been out of the public for too long." Yeah, no, for sure. Prince.
I went back and watched Prince's performance last night too, and
you get chills.
100%.
Yeah,
it's so good.
McCartney too was great.
McCartney was great, and
like 10 years ago.
Petty was. I remember Petty's being really good.
Don't remember that, but I've definitely rewatched it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll probably get into it in our interview coming up, but full disclosure, this is, you were fanboying over Mark McAway with Moist. This is definitely similar situation for me. And I'm sure we'll get into it. But yeah, long history with this guy's music, which there's a lot of it.
There is a lot. He has got so many.
All very different,
One of the things that I'm very excited about with this episode is if people aren't familiar with this gentleman, there's so much to go through.
And it's all good.
It's
very
all
good. Yeah. Pete Van Helvoort is coming up. But first, who do we have here with us today?
Big thanks to Go Services, Inc.
Yes.
Bo's Bar and Stage.
Yes. And our lovely, amazing, talented producers, Ryan and Riley here at Communal Creative Studios. Hello. He just dabbed. Oh, I think that was my kind of dab. Dab. All right. What do we got?
Episode 45.
The sweater you're wearing is fucking beautiful, man. What is it?
This is Kyle from the Nil, his girlfriend Kaylee, who did all the flower arrangements for the artwork. It's like her company.
Oh, very cool. So it's like she runs a florist design.
She's a big Guy Lafleur fan.
Guy Lafleur. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
So what's going on, man? It's really, really good to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah, nothing much. Just
nothing much. Busy as hell.
Well, yeah, actually, it is busy. Yeah, because we basically had everything postponed for the Suns, and then now everything is like coming up really fast. So going to Kingston to do some rehearsals and stuff like that on Thursday.
Are there more American dates coming, or is all the American stuff finished?
Just two. Okay. They're both reschedules. Yeah. Cleveland and Grand Rapids that got canceled in December.
So I was thinking about it earlier, but it is kind of interesting that the final pre-pan concert that I saw, I think for you too, right? Was the Glorious Sons?
Yes. Yep.
Mere days before you guys ended up getting booted off tour. It was also a weird thing because we had been in touch about maybe meeting up that day you were in Red Deer. At which point your role changed drastically, right?
Yeah. I went from guitar tech to bass player. Like basically, it was like they did a show in Royal Oak, Michigan, and by the time I was like home after that day, we had like 4 days before we went to Vancouver, and I had to learn like 27 songs or something like that.
And you did it.
We did it. Yeah. The first show I did with them was in Vancouver, and we had about a 20-minute sound check, and it was a 2-hour show, which was probably an hour longer than the longest Teenage Kick show.
Yeah, so absolutely.
I'd never been on stage that long.
But you were cool with it? It felt good? Were you exhausted?
No, not exhausted. I mean, I don't like making mistakes, so I would like beat myself up a lot. I did a lot of rehearsing. And even even up to this point, like we've never been able to do more than a stretch of a few shows without like COVID getting in the way and kind of having to postpone stuff. So it'll be nice to actually like play 30 shows with them in a row or something like that and actually feel like, muscle memory and stuff like that. But it's a lot of songs to learn, especially the bass. I find if it was a guitar, I might be like less absent-minded sometimes, but overall it's been good. I like Brett's songs a lot, so that's been like kind of the best part of it.
So that was 2 years ago, just almost exactly 2 years ago.
So I'm curious the jump from going from guitar tech, because you guitar teched with them, to being on stage, differences in getting ready for a show like that. How do you feel jumping from one position into the next?
Yeah, I mean, like my day is shorter in a way because like guitar teching and generally working for a band, you're kind of like you work from morning until night. So I still help out. Like, so now Jesse's back. That's who I had replaced. Jesse was away because he was sick. So I still help Jesse as it stands. It kind of felt weird to go from like being part of the crew to being in the band and then being like, yeah, sorry guys, you're on your own. So just like out of my own like personal feelings towards the relationships that I built with those people. So my day is weird because I like to run through a good portion of the set like before we play the show. So that takes a bit of time, and that was kind of like probably around the same time as when I was getting all the guitars set up and stuff like that. Yeah, and Brett doesn't give us a set list until like 20 minutes to 30 minutes before the show. So, there's a pretty good group of songs to choose from, and then if I'm worried about anything, I'll kind of like go over it. But yeah, it's interesting. It hasn't changed too much just because I also like after every show the next day, I like mix a song from the show before and it goes on the band's like fan app, and I'm still doing that as well. So they're like a pretty busy day in general.
But so what is your status in the band now?
Well, I don't know that. I think I'm like a member in the sense that I play with them. Like I'm in the band, but not. I don't know. We never really talked about it. Like I'm gonna go make. Like it's like it is what it is. I spend so much time with Brett as it is, and we just don't really talk about it. But I'm going and making a record with them, so like that obviously is more than I think either of us expected at the beginning.
Yeah.
My loyalty first and foremost is to them. Like even with Darling Congress, like I would be doing Glorious Sun stuff before I would do Darling Congress stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of just unsaid. Like Chris was in the band for so long that, I know that there was a lot of people that were like angry about how that all played out. But the problem is that no one ever really knows like the inner workings of any situation. And I think Brett is from the school of thought that like he likes a bit of privacy, and he like no one loves his fans more than Brett does. He truly is appreciative of all those people. But I think for him, it was a personal matter. And that's why we haven't really, talked about it that much as to like, what does it mean that I'm in the band? Like I was asking Brett to play bass in the band. Like once I had known what had happened with Chris, I was asking him for, like a few months or something like that. And even that, like him and I being as good friends as we are, it was like, he just didn't want to talk about it. Like
Yeah.
It was, so I just keep playing. I show up. I don't think I'm going to get fired as long as I keep practicing. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm almost 37. So like the fact that I'm playing in a band like theirs that like I like so many of their songs, and they get to do all this cool stuff that I never got to do in Teenage Kicks, like playing Massey Hall, like that's insane. I even in the best of times in Kicks, I would not have dreamed of that as a possibility. So, I'm just kind of happy to be there.
Yeah, it's there. I don't think we've talked about it before, but there was a few years where I thought you were done with music.
Yeah, and I worked at Shopify, and I had written a bunch of songs after Teenage Kicks broke up. And I kind of tried to do like a solo project, and I just couldn't. I made the record, but I just couldn't really put a band together or get it off the ground. And I was pretty much resigned to be done with it. And then the way in which I started working for the Suns is like very strange. I've known them forever.
Mm-hmm.
The first Teenage Kicks West Coast tour was with them. So that was like 2013, I think.
14, I think.
Yeah, oh, it's 14, right. Yeah, like January into March 14, you're right. And so I become friends with them, but I kept in touch to some extent over the years, but not a huge amount. We would see each other at shows, and we were always friends. But Brett was basically moving in with the guys from the Dirty Nil in Hamilton. And so he texted me to tell me that he was doing that. We talked for a little bit, and then 3 weeks later, Jesse found out he was sick, and Brett and Jay asked me if I wanted to go on the road with them as their guitar tech. And I literally had no plans of going on tour. I never really liked being a sound guy because I did that for a while. I tour managed and did sound for the Flatliners for a while. And even though they're like, some of my best friends, I just didn't really like working for a band. And Marta, who's my wife, we talked about like how I was kind of in this rut working at Shopify and missed, being around music. And the first gig that I did with them was like Ottawa Blues Fest. They were headlining one of the nights. And I remember walking out onto the stage and there was like 20,000 people or something like that. And, there to see them. And I think they were playing Hide My Love. And I was just like, it was like, all right, this is bigger than me. So like, it just felt like it was easy to buy in, like the skill at which those songs live. They're just like Hide My Love could be a Beatles song. Like it's a beautiful, beautiful song. And to watch that many people be moved by it, it was like, all right, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. So I toured with them that whole summer of 2019. And then I went back to work in the fall and I was like, I can't do this. And I quit and went to Europe with the Suns, and that was basically it.
And that was the fall before the pandemic? Like it was that short? Oh my God. Holy shit. Yeah, because I didn't know how long you had been working with them for.
Not long. Everyone thinks it's been like multiple years. Even when like I talk with Brett about it, he'll like talk of the timeline like it's been a while, but it really hasn't. I was only working with them for maybe 8 months before COVID happened. So not long at all.
Yeah, because I think you and I would have met at that Edmonton festival, which would have then been summer.
September, right?
September so that would have been September 2019.
Yeah.
And then into the band and playing here in March of 2020. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
It's like I can understand why he might feel like it's been longer though, just being around you for so long, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
yeah. I mean, I think so. It's just like when you're on the road, it's weird like that too, right? Like where I think time moves both fast and slow, Yeah. It's like, it seems like a lot more time has gone by because you make all of these individual memories in the different places that you go, but it's happening in such a condensed period of time,
So, a little context from me personally is that, I've been kind of listening to you for almost 15 years, which there's many different projects across that decade and a half. You know what I mean? But you're also my first radio interview. You guys in 2014 when you were in Calgary opening for the Suns, you and Jeff came by SAIT, the radio school in Calgary. It was a super haggard, amateur fucking hour that we talked for. And it was a crazy talk too. Do you remember that interview at all?
I remember meeting you because I'll always remember meeting you because of your name, because Jeff and I probably made like 15 American Psycho jokes. And I don't necessarily remember what the content of the conversation was.
Well, a good chunk of the interview was you telling me about California.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds about right.
And I remember finishing that interview and being like, holy fuck, like that was, that's a crazy story. And, a story that encapsulates, and I don't know how much you want to get into it, but a story that encapsulates the highest highs you can get at that point in your career and the fucking lowest lows. You know what I mean? Like a pure disappointment. And it was a big eye opener for me, but also, and this is like a really selfish thing, but I remember seeing you guys had to leave SAIT because you had an interview at a radio station. You had to go to, and I remember talking to, I don't remember if it was you or your brother at the show that night. I was like, oh yeah, how was your second interview? And you're like, it was a 5-minute radio interview.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so hour and a half interviees are what I need to go for.
So is that how long you guys talked for at SAIT?
I think it was quite a long time. Yeah.
Well, I'll always talk. I mean, like that woke us up to a lot of stuff too, because we were on Universal, but we had been signed to EMI, and EMI had gone under or been bought out or whatever. So not like really no one was left at Universal from EMI that really was that interested in our band. Like, not to say people weren't helpful, they were. But I also probably didn't help it because I didn't really like listening to anyone's advice about anything. And I was just like, no, like I'm right. So I remember being on that tour and they were trying to get radio people to give us interviews, and no one would have us. It was like they were talking about having to bring in pizza. They were talking about having us. This is in March at West, and they wanted us to drive. I think it was either Kelowna or Kamloops, but it was one of the two, and it was overnight to get to Edmonton for 8 a.m. And it was like something like an 8-hour drive in the middle of the night in the winter. And I remember asking, it was actually Shazad Jawani from Grays, and he was like, it's not worth it. He's like, anything that person says to you is not going to change your life. And so we ended up, and I don't remember what his name was, but we ended up getting the label to like change the date of it or the time of it or whatever. We ended up being able to go later in the afternoon. So we woke up first thing in the morning and we go there, and he saw us for 5 minutes, and he's like, you guys sound like Monster Truck meets the Trues, not interested. And I was like, okay, I'm so glad that I didn't almost lose my life driving through like a national park at 3 a.m. But that's the way it was. Jay from the Suns was really good to us on that tour because everyone wanted to talk to them, right? Yeah. At that time, they had like multiple singles on the radio, and he would convince people to like let us come in and say hello and stuff like that. So that was quite nice.
Yeah, crazy times, man. Like, and to think that you're that it's evolved into your stint with the Suns now, and getting back to your own music is well, I'm very grateful. I truly am. So we will talk about Darling Congress.
Now?
I may as well.
I'm ready to jump in.
So, like I said, almost 15 years of listening to your music over the years. That's across many projects, which I think I may have introduced a few to Pete over the last week or so. I did find footage of M Code. I'm just going to say.
Did you?
Yeah. Do you know that? Did you know that's still out there?
Oh yeah, there's a GIF somewhere on the internet of me. It was my first date with my first long-term girlfriend. She came to our show, an M Code show, and the bass player Jordan Cadwallader hit me in the head with his bass, like the head stock of his bass,
yeah,
and got me right. I still have the scar. Got me right above the eye and knocked me basically unconscious onto the ground. And I woke up and I was just gushing blood. And there's a GIF somewhere on the internet of me getting hit and snapping back and falling to the ground.
Okay, I'll have to do a little more digging for that. But I was trying to find it the other day, and I found this weird playlist from a link on MySpace.
Yeah.
That linked to a bunch of videos of you guys playing. I don't know where the club was.
It was probably Burlington. It was everywhere in Burlington you played was like a pool hall.
Yeah. It was probably something like that. And I mean, the quality is you can barely tell who's on stage. But it was funny because I texted a mutual friend of ours, kind of Desi. I'm sure you remember Desi, but I was like, dude, here is this. And he was like, holy fuck, I can't believe I'm listening to these songs again.
And what era, what year is this?
So it'd be 2005, 2006. So we had two bands that had basically the exact same lineup. One was my brother's and one was mine. Mine was Cain and Abel, which was kind of pop punk and I guess emo, that kind of stuff. And M Code was my brother's, which was metalcore influenced by Curl Up and Die and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like I said, same band for both.
Very distinctive sounds. And another thing, as I delve into my appreciation for Pete's music, is that Cain and Abel was at one point 11 years ago kind of my soundtrack to moving to the West. Specifically Keep On Keeping On, which I would recommend that as a soundtrack when you're driving through the mountains any day. It's worth it.
I still like that. That was a good one. That's with Paul, who's now in Silverstein.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was Paul played bass on that and does all the backup vocals.
Very cool. That yeah. Anyway, so it's been kind of a trip for me over the last couple of days going through some music that I spent a lot of time with. And new to the playlist is Darling Congress. So you're working with the Glorious Sons. How does this happen?
Yeah, so when we were on the road in the summer of 2019, I would wake up early and I would Brett had his guitar on the bus and I would just kind of strum around in the mornings. And I wrote a bunch of songs on that tour, maybe 7 or 8 songs. But then I also started working on, I have so many old songs, even after the Darling Congress stuff that that's never seen the light of day. And so I started showing them to Brett and, we just kind of talked about it casually. And when we got back home, to Hamilton, he came over, and I actually thought we were going to work on his songs. And he was like, no, he's like, I don't need you to help me on my songs. He's like, let's work on your songs. and not in like a cocky way, but he just wanted me to like kind of get over this like invisible roadblock that I was not able to get around. I just couldn't finish a song unless it was a Christmas song. Like that's the only thing that I've been able to put out in like 5 years. And so, we just started working on them, and we basically spent, I don't know, maybe like 3-4 days a week for a couple weeks in October of 2019 working on them. And then we went to Europe in November of that year, and we worked on them a little bit more there. And then the idea was that we were going to do them in April of 2020. So as soon as we got home from that Canadian tour. And then obviously COVID happened. And in that interim, I spent 4 or 5 hours a day, like just finger picking. Like I pretty much rewrote all the songs. They were all like finger picking. And Brett moved from Hamilton to where he lives now, north of Kingston. And basically that was when Keegan came in, and we kind of, we knew it was going to happen at some point in time, but we just kind of kept pushing it back and pushing it back. I think Brett kind of wanted to take some space from music in general, because like both of you guys are familiar with their touring schedule over the last few years. Like that band pretty much worked. Yeah. Like they pretty much worked straight through for 5 years. So I think they just needed a break from music, and we all got together in the summer of 2020 and started working stuff out. And that was when we kind of brought the band in, and everything with the band was all done like live off the floor. No rehearsals. We kind of spent about an hour and a half on each song.
Wow.
And that was where we laid the beds. And then everything else got finished up at Brett's house. It was just me and Keegan, our engineer, Matt, and Brett.
So, and I do want to ask about Keegan lately, but can you, like, who's this Matt fella? Because he seems to have some pretty insane accolades already.
Yeah, so Matt, I met years ago. He was like the main engineer as a very young guy, because I think he's 4 or 5 years younger than me. But as a very young guy, he was the main engineer at Phase One, which was a really nice studio in Scarborough. Had a beautiful Neve board, a lot of really great gear, really great live room. And he did the engineering for Be On My Side, the Teenage Kicks EP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so from then we just like became friends, and I had him engineer the Flatliners record that I produced, and I had him come in on the Darling Congress stuff. I'm probably forgetting something, but now he works with Keegan, and he is like an assistant to Cause, who's like a super big producer who actually used to be in, do you guys remember Boy? They were a band from out west,
Yeah,
like a rock band from like basically like early 2000s.
They definitely had, there was at least one radio single I think they had that did fairly well.
For sure.
I can't remember the name of it.
I can't either. They had like Every Page You Turn or something like that. Like that was.
I do remember playing. Yeah, I do remember playing them on the radio.
Yeah, but they're a great band actually. If you find that record on Spotify or whatever, it's awesome. But he works with Cause, and Cause does like, he's done stuff with Dua Lipa, and he's done stuff with like Dermot Kennedy and Haley Steinfeld, and so Matt's been doing a lot of that stuff lately, in addition to kind of like still working with independent bands. I think he's kind of like one of the best kept secrets in our industry, because his personality, he's so like quiet and soft spoken that I don't think that his like reputation like precedes him, but his quality of work is very high.
Yeah, I mean, after a Grammy, I'd suspect as much.
Yeah. He's a good guy.
And then, so it's you, Matt, Brett, and Keegan, you said.
Yeah, and then my buddy Brent plays bass.
Okay.
Brent used to be in I don't know if you know this one, in the Peter Van Helvoort discography, but do you know Ulysses and the Siren?
Yeah.
It was like a little short blip. So Brent played drums on the Ulysses stuff.
Okay.
And Brent and his brother played on the last Teenage Kicks tour that we like broke up on. And his passport was the one that got stolen in Chicago, which was like the reason that we had to like stop that tour. Yeah. So, and then Conrad played on a bunch of the songs, Conrad from Poor Young Things. And the rest of the songs were Max Treffler, who was in the Moors, who are now called Jackie.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I really like Jackie actually. That's
Yeah,
we got some good sounds going on.
Yeah, they're great. And Max is like an unreal drummer.
So to back up to the songwriting process a little bit,
Yeah,
is there?
It's all good.
Is there an area of it that you struggle at the most? That Brett kind of came in and like is it choruses you have a hard time with, or verses, or what's the main component that he'll come in and help with?
So he definitely. So it was actually his manager Jason, who I had brought the songs to Jason just to get his thoughts, and there was this one. Well, the first, or I guess the second single, "Always on the Edge," and before that, it was called "At the End." And I brought it to him, and I'd been listening to like a lot of Cat Stevens and especially a lot of Gillian Welch from like The Revelator. Like I was listening to that record a whole bunch, and I played it for Jason, and he's like, "Oh, this doesn't have a chorus." And I Teenage Kicks, every song had a chorus like that. Every song was like a big chorus. So in my mind, I was like, I think you're wrong. I don't think you know what you're talking about. And then I went home and I kind of like thought about it more. And, I was like trying not to be so precious and stuff like that. And I was like, no, like he's right. It doesn't have a chorus. It had a verse and a pre-chorus, which is like the verse and pre-chorus that it has now. And it never had the, why am I always on the edge part? Right. The hook. So I went to Brett's and he had worked on that song with me already. And we had basically just kind of like fixed what was already there. And I told him what Jason had said. And he was like, oh, I don't agree with that either. And then once we like started messing with it, like, I think he wrote that chorus if I'm remembering correctly. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Or he like, what we do a lot is like, we just sit there with guitars and then one of us will like almost like make a mistake or something like that. And it will like pop an idea into the other one's head. Like that's the thing that happens the most. It's not like I wrote this for you, take it. It's like happy accidents. And like the whole recording process was really like that. A lot of the most interesting bass things on the record are things that Brent was doing to like warm up his fingers because he's a classical guitar player. And Brett would hear that and he'd be like, no, do that here. So the choruses was helpful in a way because Brett, writes really great choruses, but it was actually phrasing was a really big thing. He made things feel like they were moving forward more. And even now, like when I write stuff, since having done that with Brett, I feel like my songs are like already moving forward more than they would have before we did that. And then the other thing was, why can't I not think of the word? The ability to understand what I'm saying. Like he made my pronunciation and enunciation like much, much better.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
He kicked my ass. Like he was not easy on me at all when we did vocals. Like not necessarily in a mean way, but he was like, no, sing it again. And no one's really done that with me. I've been recording myself for basically 15 years.
Yeah. I remember when we had talked and you'd sent me a bunch of these songs, I think it was last summer or late spring last year. And you had kind of explained how this process was different than the past because there was so much collaboration. And
for sure.
And you seemed very happy about that.
Yeah. I mean, and also like, I don't think I was like a mean person or like not open necessarily in Teenage Kicks, but I definitely had a tendency of being like offended if someone didn't like something or whatever. And in this group, it's been like, I'm a member of the group. And even though they're my songs, if someone suggests something, we try it no matter what.
Yeah.
But we kind of, it's like, what does the song need? Like there's no serving of individual egos. So it's cool because if you think of it like myself, Keegan, Brett, Conrad is quite a musical drummer. Like he reminds me kind of like of a Levon Helm. And then even Snell, who, has been kind of in charge of everything that he's done. You have a lot of like alpha male sounds bad because none of us are like aggro. Yeah. But in terms of like the role that we would take in each of our individual projects, we're all the leader. Right. And when we're together, there's not, I'm not even just saying this, there's no headbutting at all. It's just like everyone is like, just like happy to serve the song and happy to be around each other. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced. And I think the last version of Teenage Kicks was a really good band, but it was still my band, you know, and I was still telling people what to do, and that's not what's happening in this at all.
Well, to be fair, you were, from what I remember, like the only constant in Teenage Kicks, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, even if someone came back.
Yeah,
after
like my brother.
Yeah. Sorry, Jeff. So I'm curious because in 2015, May 23rd to be exact.
Yes.
At the Horseshoe Tavern was the final Teenage Kick show. And
you want to see something funny? Hold on.
Let's see. Is it the poster?
It's the poster.
Oh, such a good poster. I know Steve Surgenes, who I was at that concert with, has that framed in his place as well.
Okay. I like that poster.
But my girlfriend and I, we flew out for that concert. I asked for the weekend off, I believe. Yep. So is the entirety, like, is the Darling Congress roster, were they all in attendance that night?
Brett definitely wasn't.
Was Keegan there? Because
Keegan played.
Was he on stage that night?
Keegan came on stage and played Helter Skelter with us.
Oh, shit. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Brent, I don't think was there, but Brent played the other last show we did, which was the Pinkerton one.
Right. Okay.
He played drums for that. And then Conrad would have been there. Yeah.
There was a fleeting moment that night where I thought I saw an old high school classmate of mine. And years later, I did find out that it was indeed Jordan McDonald.
Oh, no way.
Yes. Yeah. And I remember being like, I'm pretty sure that's Jordan McDonald. Because you don't really forget Jordan McDonald at any stage in his life, I don't think. And then a few years ago, his band Texas King was opening up for Big Wreck. And I was like, man, were you at that final TK show? Because I swear to God, I saw you there.
Yeah. He was just at our house, actually. He was at our house twice in the last month. He stays here when he is flying into Hamilton.
Right. From BC or?
From BC.
Yeah. And you produced a couple Texas King songs recently, or?
I did that EP.
Right. Okay.
Like Matt and I did that together. And that was a lot of fun. I love Jordan. I think he's infinitely talented.
Yeah, he's pretty spectacular. Yeah. He's quite a presence.
And you're working on Casador now?
No, so that Brett is working on Casador.
Okay.
That's a new development. He'd been working on, I think, writing songs with them since just the beginning of January. I just went to do some guitar tech stuff and to hang out for a few days. But I had never stayed at Bathouse before, and that was awesome.
Is that the Bathouse?
Not to nerd out too much over that, but I think that's where we initiated some conversation a couple weeks ago was the Phantom Power. And I was very jealous that you were there. So what as a big hip fan, what's it like working in that studio?
Yeah, I mean, it gave me shivers. Like, I know that's the quintessential Canadian thing to say, but it's like, I don't know. They were such an important band to me growing up. Like, they were the one band, maybe Blue Rodeo as well, but like those two bands were like the ones that I bonded with my dad over, you know? And so just like being there in the presence of like, you know, that Phantom Power thing, and there's like the Juno, like the award-winning envelope for Trouble at the Hen House for like Best Rock Album. There's like the actual artwork from Fully Completely. Like, it's incredible. There's an upstairs room that's like a pool table, and it's this big red room, and it's just got like records and VHSs everywhere. And I just like, I don't know. There's just like something special about that place.
There was a one night only in theaters when they released the We Are the Same album. They did a one night only in theaters where Strombopoulos went in and interviewed them, and they toured all through the house. And it was only one. I saw it the one time. I've never been able to see it or find it anywhere else. I've been begging for it to somehow come out. But there's a scene where Strombo and Gord are just shooting pool upstairs and just talking things through. And then they also converted. Was it something in the garage into a rehearsal space?
So I got a message from a guy who, like another old friend from like the Kicks days, and when I was posting those stories, and he was like, I heard that there's a building there where they rehearsed. And I was like, I don't know where it would be, because it's like, I'm in the house, I've gone through every single room in here. And then I'm like outside with Brett's dog, and I look at the garage, and I was like, like that must be it. So I like went back in the house, walked into the garage, and you go up the stairs, and it's like bigger than like Sneaky D's is. Like it's a huge room with like a full mixing board, like, and there's just like just on 2 stands are like 2 of Rob Baker's Strats, just like sitting on the stage of this room, like 70s Strats just sitting there. Who knows? Like, I don't know if he goes and plays them often. I'm not sure. I was trying to limit how many things I would ask Boris because I'm sure that it gets a little annoying for him.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So you'll get there one of these days.
Definitely one of these days. When we were so my son went to school out in London, and when we had picked him up, we didn't have much time to kind of mosey around. But we had talked about, because Kingston's about a 6-hour drive from London.
Yeah, probably.
Give or take.
Yeah.
So we only had the day, and we were going to spend 12 of it driving up there. But another time. There was other family members that weren't quite as interested in seeing that stuff as we were.
Just to stand outside for a few minutes.
Yeah.
So Darling we got to get back to this. Darling Congress.
Yes,
you put 2 songs out. Always on the Edge. Your Dog Don't Like You.
Yeah.
Well, I know there's more out there.
Yeah. So there's a whole record. I'm doing a thing with Keegan. We're doing like kind of like a little acoustic thing with a couple covers that's going to come out kind of in the in between of the 2 things. But yeah, it should be out by the early summer.
So it's official.
I'm not gonna. Yeah, it's gonna come out. I mean, it's done. Like I actually finished mixing the last 3 songs today. So it would have come out a lot earlier, but then I wanted to make it an LP. It was only an EP. It was 7 songs. And so we did 3 in November, but Keegan got very sick, so we couldn't come.
Yeah.
And then we didn't get to be back in the same room until January. So finally finished them.
All right. Well, I already got my shirts, so I'm ready for the album.
Is there any chance or talk where you could do double duty and Darling Congress opens for the Suns and you're playing in both? Or would you? Sounds like your days are already pretty busy, but
I mean, if there was like a show or 2, I don't even like get into asking that kind of stuff, because the thing is, like, Jay manages a lot of bands, you know, like Brett's friends with a lot of bands. I think that it's a kind of a slippery slope with like, oh, do you mind doing me this favor? Like, to be honest, if Darling Congress never played a show, I would be perfectly fine with it, because I really like playing in the Suns. And if the time comes that I can do it, then that's great. Like, we will have an opening in like the early fall, then we'll do it then. But like, as it stands, we're pretty much busy until like July, right? So like, up until after the West Coast stuff. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
That seems like it would be a lot of work.
There's a lot of unfinished business out there.
There is.
Yeah,
including those 2 back-to-back shows in Red Deer. God damn it!
Yeah.
I know that tour name is so unfortunate, considering how it keeps getting postponed.
What is it?
Well, it's Unfinished Business.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Truly.
And I keep posting it on Instagram, being like, Unfinished Business Part 2.
Still unfinished.
Still unfinished.
Okay, so there will be an album, which is very good. I think I've mentioned this to you before briefly in the DMs, but like the evolution of your sound from, you know, all the older projects through Teenage Kicks to Darling Congress is pretty remarkable to me, because there are significant differences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people say that to me. I mean, I think of like when I first met the Nil was when, you know, Fucking Up Young first came out.
Yeah.
And Luke doesn't sound that different now than he did that. Like, he sounds like he sings, like he's a better singer now, but the essence of his voice has always been there.
Yeah.
And if you listen to like Brett's early stuff, the essence of Brett's voice has always been there. My voice has distinctly changed probably 10 times. And I don't know why. I don't know how, but it just like, it keeps, you know, happening. I just like can't sing the stuff that I wrote before, and then I change the voice again.
We'll call it versatility.
Yeah, I guess. except if I ever had to go back and do one of the old things, then it wouldn't be really work too well.
Is that why on the Wikipedia, the last sentence on the Teenage Kicks wiki is that Peter said that they will never reunite?
No, the reason I did that was because I got so pissed off that like bands, I think that like breaking up is kind of a sacred thing.
Yeah.
And I think there's certain bands that I think they didn't get their due. And so when they got back together, like Constantine's, like that band that probably never made really much money at all when they were a band, even though they were mine and a lot of other people's favorite band. So when they got, came back, I was like, I thought they did it tastefully. It would have been nice if they like had released more new music in the process, but that I was fine with. But there's other bands that I find that it's almost like a part of a business decision or something like that to reunite, because for some reason, like reunion culture, the band would be so much bigger when they reunited than they were when they were around. And I'm not quite sure why that is. So when I was done with something, I wanted to be done with it. Jeff and I have talked about, like, if we ever did something with Kicks, we would actually write new music. Like, I don't want to like just be like, hey, here's our like 10 greatest hits. Now give us a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, like, when we were a band, we were not very good at like making money. All of our shows, like our last show, I think was $10. Oh yeah, I'm looking at it. It was $10.
Yeah.
Like, so I came out of that, and you did too because you're from Oakville, but I came out of that like YMCA all ages, like every show is $5. Like I still remember Rose is Dead when they did their final tour. Every show was $5. And that stuff has always stuck with me. It's not necessarily feasible now because it's quite expensive to be in a band, but I don't like hosing people. And I feel like if I could, if Teenage Kicks would reunite and I didn't feel like I was hosing people, like we're reuniting and here's 10 t-shirt designs.
Yeah.
Like that when Refuse reunited, a band that literally wrote like a manifesto about like anti-capitalism and about how they would never reunite. And then they reunite and they're like 10 t-shirt designs. I just think that those things are kind of like at odds with each other.
I always thought it was so interesting when Alexis on Fire broke up. Playing their, they broke up. They played their. I saw their last show which was in Oakville. It was like on that last stretch of dates. They were doing a ton of Ontario concerts. I don't know if they must have been in the States before. They played Sheridan College. Mockingbird, Wish Me Luck opened up. Like it was Sheridan College, whatever, 13, 14 years ago. And then they ended tour and we didn't really hear from them for a while. And then they announced that they were breaking up. And then they went on these farewell shows, which were at pretty sizable venues, and then they were done. Then like a year and a half later, they're playing fucking O2 Arena.
Yeah, it wasn't too long. And also, if I was like people who had flown from South America to see the last show, and then all of a sudden you're like, sorry, like, I don't know. I'm not gonna talk shit, but those things are like, I want to know what the justification is, like, because it just doesn't seem like the logic is there. Like, then just go on hiatus. Don't break up.
But and the fact of the matter is I mean, it's incumbent on us as fans to go, okay, yeah, right, it's your last show. But I do like even with Colorado, like Colorado did their last show, and they were already joking within a couple of months after that about the reunion show
on Instagram really? Okay.
And again, whether they're just joking around or whatever.
Yeah.
But nothing's ever final.
But yeah, I just remember when they announced those reunion shows, I was like, wait a second, you didn't play O2 Arena ever before? This is a fucking great strategy.
Yeah. Well, but it honestly does seem like a strategy. I'm not specific to Lex on Fire.
No.
Think about how much bigger Death from Above got after they broke up.
Yeah.
Like significantly.
Yeah, you're right.
Always leave them wanting more.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, hey, I'm not going to complain that those bands are still in our lives.
Right.
But yeah.
More music is always good.
Industry lessons. I also caught you doing a Side Door Access concert. I think that was in the summer, right?
Yeah, May 16th.
Feels like a long time ago. Holy shit, May 16th? Jesus.
It was the day before my birthday.
Oh, right. And were you weren't in this very room right now, were you?
No, we were in the basement.
Oh, okay.
We did up where like my studio stuff is.
You've done a couple of those now, or was it just that one and you had to cancel?
I did two. I did like one at Christmas time, like during the first wave of COVID, and then I did the May 16 one. Yeah,
which was a lot of fun, and we did have Dan Mangan on months and months ago, and kind of talked to him about the importance of a system like that. Really is what it is.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans to engage with Side Door on that scale again?
I mean, when I did the third show, I don't know if people were just like over the idea of live stream, but it was like a much harder task of getting people to like buy into the live stream. So I think the live stream thing is maybe, I think people might be a little over it at this point in time.
Fatigue.
Yeah, but I like the other aspect of Side Doors business a lot, like the intimate shows in people's homes.
Yes.
Like my brother and I are very big David Bazan fans, right? And he did that for a long time, where he would like set up those kind of like intimate shows, and that was how he toured. So I like that part. I think that's cool. There's a guy in London named Lee who I did a show at his house February 2018 or something like that. But I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we were just talking about a guy in Red Deer that was doing that for a long time, just hosting shows at his house for people interested in music that wasn't necessarily getting a whole lot of attention elsewhere.
Yeah.
And the concept of it is beautiful.
Yep.
Has to happen.
Yeah. No, Dan's a smart man. He's very bright. Like that he thought of like making a platform for that, I think is awesome.
Yeah, totally. And then, going back a little bit, that Side Door show was really funny at the very beginning because Keegan Powell in the chat wrote something like, "Hi, honey buns."
Okay.
And Kayla and I are sitting on the couch, and she saw that, and she's like, "Oh my God, does he know?" She doesn't know who this guy is.
Yeah.
Does he know that everyone could see that? He definitely knew, because he's fucking crazy, right?
Yeah, but it might even have been Kelly, like his girlfriend. I'm not sure. Yeah, no, Keegan knew.
Is he like what kind of guy? I've talked to him in the DMs a few times, and it's just been hilarious. Like what's?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I get like a different side of Keegan. We've been friends for so long.
Fair enough.
But no, he's brilliant. Like he's by far the best guitar player I've ever met. Like his creative mind is incredible, and he can like just pull harmonies out of the air. Like, yeah, I think he's maybe one of the greatest assets that anyone could have on their music, just because he will always like. I could listen to my record with no vocals on it, and I would be like, "This is great."
Yeah.
Like, just because I think that he is such a moving guitar player. He reminds me like of a George Harrison, type of guitar player, where he doesn't necessarily play a lot of notes, but he plays all the good ones. Yeah, he's just like, he's very, very, very unique. I kind of am sad that like we never got to the point of like not liking each other because of the way that he left Teenage Kicks. But I'm sad that we kind of missed like a good chunk of time there in the middle where we kept in touch, but it was always like a little bit mad at him for the way that went down. I think if he would have stayed in the band, we probably would have continued.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my older age and going and looking back on, how I acted about certain things when I was younger, that's one of my biggest regrets, just because I value him so much as like, kind of almost like a little brother.
That Wildcard song is so good.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
Yeah.
There's something he does. Did you work on that at all, or?
No, not Wildcard.
Yeah.
There's a new one that he did with Snell that hasn't been released that I helped with, but I'm generally speaking, I like give like a bit of advice, but I'm kind of out of the room on that stuff.
He did steal your bike in the music video for Your Dog Don't Like You, right?
He did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the girl who directed that is his girlfriend.
Okay.
That's Kelly. Yeah.
Yeah. Check that out, please. God, listen to those two singles from Darling Congress if you're listening to this interview.
Yes, and more to come.
Thank you.
Yes. Someday soon. But it is really cool to hear. It feels like you're just in a really. Sounds like your perspective is very good right now.
It's definitely different. I mean, I've spent most of my adult life thinking everyone's out to get me, and I mean, like not to take it somewhere different, but I got on medication after like 5 years of people telling me I needed to get my shit figured out. So I think that probably helped. Like some people are addicted to drugs or alcohol. I was addicted to being depressed.
Well,
like I just like felt like I couldn't live without it.
Well, congrats, and that is a very positive endorsement, I think.
Yeah, I can't
At
remember.
least talk to someone. That's all I'll say.
The quote. There was one quote I read from you, and I can't remember where exactly it was from. But you talked about how life doesn't end at 30.
Yeah, I mean, I literally felt like I was like fighting the clock with teenage kicks. Like, if I don't do this by 27, then it's not going to happen. And like I said, I'm 37, and I'm closer to playing music as a career than I've ever been. You know, and I didn't. I went after it in a way before where I still had the same work ethic now, if not maybe a little bit more, but I'm trying to find a different word than thirsty, but like, I was like so hungry for it in a way that was like, I think off-putting to people, just because like people don't always want you to tell them how badly you want something. Right. And so you just like kind of just shut my mouth and put my head down. And, I mean, I learned Gloria Sun songs a month before Brett asked me to play with the band, like in the summer before those shows in Sarnia and Timmins. And I didn't know if I was going to get asked. I just didn't. I was like, all right, I'm just going to learn them because I like his songs and I like playing bass. And I've been trying to do that in general with my life, of like, what do I like to do just because I like to do it, And like I said, as I get older, I've just made more of a point of like, what can I do to be good to other people? What can I do to be kind, be helpful? Like, that's like really my only concern. I've realized that that's like what wealth is to me in life, is like making sure that, the people around me are like decently happy with their interactions with me. I can't remember the last time I fought with Jeff, and we used to fight all the time.
That's really good to hear. That's awesome.
Yeah.
He was asking. He's like, is Jeff still play music? I was like, I have no idea. No idea.
And because I know
Jeff does play music.
You talked about the song kind of starting off as kind of being about your brother, and then it became other things. Yeah. So just as I listen to the lyrics of that, I'm like, okay, are they have offenses?
Both of those songs are like about mine and Jeff's relationship being in like a bad place. Yeah. And it was in a pretty bad place until probably a year ago.
Wow, dude.
Like at least a point where like we were still talking, but I've seen what's happened to my mom and her family, and like I don't ever want to be at a point where people are fighting about money or like petty things that don't matter in the end, right? So it's like I have no time for that stuff.
I gotta ask, is it a Dutch thing? Because we're both Peter and we're both Dutch. And exact same thing with my Opa used to always say, when I'm dead and gone, you guys can fight over all of it. And sure as hell they did.
Yeah. No, my mom's Italian. My dad's family, who are Dutch, they're awesome. They all get along like really well. My Oma was just like an absolute like wonderful person. She passed away last December, like during COVID or whatever. But everyone was like super close up until she died. No one ever fought over anything. So yeah, I've tried to model it over more so that side of the family. Yeah.
And was your dad born in Holland or what? No? Okay. So
no.
All right.
No, Oma and Opa were, and she's told me stories about like, the Nazi occupation and stuff like that, but they all lived out in the country. And so they never really saw much of it. She basically, her remembrance of the war was like getting lent out to the other farms, like because their parents had so many kids, right? And then she'd go do work at the other farms, and then her and my Opa came here, I think in the early 50s or something like that, and they had a farm with Holsteins in Shelburne, and that's where my dad grew up, on the farm.
Holsteins being, is that cattle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I think milk cows.
Yeah. There's like, if you in central Alberta here, there's a bunch of Dutch families in the. But my grandparents, the exact same story, came over in 1953, I want to say. And same thing, my grandpa or my Opa drove truck for a couple of years, but they settled on a farm in central Alberta and spent the rest of their days farming.
So you're telling me you ain't much if you ain't Dutch wasn't a Predator reference?
No, it means you ain't much if you ain't Dutch.
So even rocking the orange?
I like the orange in there. It's fun. I did see your post about your Oma, and it is. I always get excited when somebody says they have an Oma open. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
all right, I can relate.
Yeah, totally.
Are you in a long line of Pete's? Because it's like my Uncle Pete, and then my Opa was Pete as well. Are you as well?
Yeah. So my Opa's name on my dad's side his name was actually Ari, but his nickname was Pete.
Okay.
And then my dad's name was Peter. And then, so I kind of was the third Peter, and I had said, like, I'm ending that. So I don't have a son.
He did know both of his sons' names are Peter.
Yeah, no.
Both of them.
So we and what ruined it for me as well, and I shouldn't bring this up because I'm sure it'll come back to haunt me at some point, but with my Opa being Pete, my dad Peter, so it was Pete, Peter, and I was Repeat. And
That's
I hated it.
I like that.
So I ended it.
Is your dad's name actually Pete? Because my dad's name is Rick, but his real name is Henricus.
Oh, okay.
And
Whoa.
my dad's real name was like Henricus Dominicus Josephus Van Helvoort, and he just absolutely hated it.
So I've got my uncle, who is John. Sorry, we're going to dip into a completely different territory
all good.
now, but I loved his name because he went by John, but his name was Johannes Jacobus.
Okay, yeah.
Johannes Jacobus.
Yeah, but you got to get the hach in there.
Well, I'm not going to attempt it because you did
Johannes
it so
Jacobus.
perfectly.
My dad's never even been to Holland. Isn't that crazy?
Is that right?
Have you? Did you
I went once. I went with the sons.
I was just going to say, I wondered if you'd
That's so
played.
cool.
Yeah. But my dad's never been.
Did you feel anything special when you were there?
We don't have honestly, we don't have a whole lot of like ancestral pull to either the Italian or the Dutch side because neither family really did much in terms of tradition. I don't even know what like Dutch food is. The only thing I ever knew is like wooden shoes, wooden head, or whatever like that saying.
Yeah.
And then the fact that Dutch people are apparently cheap, but we just never had any sort of connection. Marta, my wife, is actually born in Italy in like a refugee camp. So she has more of a desire to go to Italy than I do. So I just liked being in Europe in general, and we were there during the Christmas season. So I was going to all the Christmas markets. So that was kind of my highlight.
We should probably bring that up very quickly. If you are a fan of Christmas, you're a fan of Christmas. Have you seen this?
I have seen, yes.
Then you must follow Peter Van Helvoort because you fucking go all out.
Who's a
my
bigger
guy.
fan, you or Mick Foley? Are you aware of Mick Foley's?
I didn't know that Mick Foley likes Christmas.
Mick Foley is a huge Christmas nut.
Dude, you've got
Mick Foley.
You got one hell of a collection, and I can't imagine it takes it's not an easy setup what you do every Christmas.
So you're gonna think this is insane, but I just started that village last year.
Holy.
And this year was the first year that it was that big. So it took me like 8 hours to take down, but I was building it like in some degree, like putting the cars together and all that stuff for like 6 months. I've been doing it since June, like up until Christmas.
Yeah.
And then the thing is that by the time it's up, I'm so sick of it that we stared at it for 3 weeks after Christmas, and I was finally like, all right, we have to get rid of this thing.
Did you go to that store? There's a store in Banff with with that is it a limited, like they do limited edition like Christmas village set pieces
and the whole
stuff?
like it's an upstairs part
it's
of it,
packed. It's loaded. Every brand, every fucking cartoon, there's versions of it. There's probably Harry Potter.
Have you been?
I've been on their website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I haven't been to Banff since we were there with the Suns. So like I haven't been in Banff for 10 years or something like that.
How about we do that next time when you've got a few hours to kill in the Banff area? We'll film you going through this fucking it'll be a magical place.
I did make Jordan and his wife Al, when we were in BC, there's a place that's not too far. I think it's in Abbotsford, and we did make them take us. It was like the first day that they switched from garden center to Christmas. It was like literally like me, Jordan's like new son, my wife, and like 200 like 80-year-olds.
Right. Yeah. Do you remember, did you ever go to that like Santa's Village theme park or whatever?
I've never. You know what? I'm not even like that. I'm like, it's weird. I don't even know that I'm even that into Christmas, but I got so obsessed with building the village. It was just like, that was the COVID thing that I started doing.
Yeah.
My next door neighbor has like a small village of maybe 5 buildings. And I went over there 2 years ago and made fun of him for it. I was like, this is so stupid. Like, why would you waste your time with this? And then we went into Michael's last Christmas, and there was like this one building, and we're like, we'll get one. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm like on like eBay, like buying stuff, like paying exorbitant amounts of money to like get things across the border in time for Christmas. Like, it was just like, it was a big time obsession. But like, it was, the Christmas song is because Marta likes Christmas so much, and that was just like, that was her stocking stuffer for like 12 years.
Oh.
So yeah. So people think that I'm like obsessed, and I like it a lot, but like, it's more so because of Marta.
It's a gift. It's your gift.
It's a gift, yeah.
Interesting. That makes a lot of sense. I'm still going to say to follow you if you're a big fan of Christmas, because you definitely pull out all the stops. Pete, you got anything repeat?
No, I knew it. No, I got nothing.
Dogs?
I'm not. Oh, yeah, we're fine. We'll save that for another chat. I love your dog. I was going to talk a little bit about Gracie.
She's a good girl.
She's a good girl. Obviously did very well in the video.
Yeah.
So you've got her trained fairly well?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time with her when she was a puppy, and the only thing I could do that would like settle her down was tricks. So she knows like 55 or 60 different commands.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, she's like very well trained. She's also has like a very good disposition. Doesn't like children, which is a bit of a problem. But
right.
She with adults, like, she's just so chill. She's half whippet, so she just like kind of just like lies around all day, and she loves like working. Like, if we have like, for instance, Marta gave me a Valentine's Day card today, and you give it to the dog and she brings it over to you, but then she wants to take it back because she wants to bring it back, and she just wants to go back and forth giving it to each person. She just goes crazy for it.
That's awesome.
You got to do that at home.
Yeah, right.
Get Buster to deliver Valentine's Day cards.
It'll be eaten.
Okay, fair enough.
He's not delivering. Yeah, it's fun, and obviously gets along with Shambles real well. That's my favorite part of watching even Brett's content too, is just seeing shots of Shambles and Gracie.
Yeah. Like, she's like gets a little bit annoyed with him now, and I'm going back up there for I think a week and a half to work on some tunes with Brett, and I'm going to bring Grace with me. So that's going to be the longest time that they've ever like been together for. But Shambles is like the sweetest dog you'll ever meet. Like, he has truly the greatest disposition of it. Probably any dog I've ever been around. He's just like a very, very sweet dog. Yeah. He's unreal.
Awesome.
Maybe one day they'll join them on tour.
That would
well, I believe that Shambles is going to be coming on tour with us.
I kind of figured that would probably be the case.
Well, one of these days, although it will not be on this stretch of updated
I'm
days.
sorry.
But
I'm sorry.
One of these days we will see you in Red Deer, and we'll get you here at Communal Creative Studios.
Yeah. How far are you guys from Calgary?
An hour and a half. We're like, Red Deer's right halfway between Calgary and Edmonton.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to come to Calgary, Chef?
I didn't think about that.
My son's in Edmonton, so I probably go.
How
to
many
Edmonton,
days are you in Calgary? Is it just one night, or?
Let me look.
I think is that at Mac Hall?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
You know what? Probably.
Yeah, I'll be.
If we get to see you, then absolutely. Why not?
We are in Calgary, so it's June 24th, and then looks like we have a day off before Vernon, BC.
Interesting. All right. Well, we will be in touch.
Okay. All right. Let me know.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks so much for making the time, and
of course, thank you for having me.
Thank you for making music again.
Thank you for listening to it. It's much appreciated.
All right, man. It was good talking to you.
Beautiful.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Peace.
See ya.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you, boys.
Peace, man. Happy Valentine's Day with Marta. Thanks for hanging out.
No worries. Okay.
Bye. Peace.
See ya. I swear to all that is holy, if I get...
Am I not allowed to say that?
If there's repeat stuff coming, I will...
I mean, it only made sense today because there were two Petes in the conversation.
Right.
So, until the next time... So we got to start brainstorming Peter named musicians that we can have on the road the stage so we can use that all the time.
Good luck.
That was a really fun
Such
time.
a fun guy. And I hope, like I said off the top, go and investigate.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of investigating to
all
do.
the music that Peter's put out.
And truly, in my opinion, just the sonic evolution from project to project to project.
Yep.
Because
it's funny, you listen to the Congress stuff, and I like Teenage Kicks and Darling Congress is what I'm most familiar with.
Yeah.
But it's they're different.
Yeah.
But there's still that underlying foundation that you can tell is
totally.
is all Peter.
Totally. So go check that stuff out. Darling Congress has 2 songs out now. Always on the Edge. Your Dog Don't Like You. More to come soon.
So your first radio interview was an hour and a half long.
Mm-hmm. Something like that. Hour 15, something. Yeah.
Crazy.
And that really didn't stop. Like,
really?
Well, when I was doing interviews on the test drive show, they were still like 45 hour long, and I would chop them down to like 2 or 3 minute and a half breaks.
That's the worst. You talk for all that time, and then you got to chop it.
All those nuggets of crazy information that you get in an hour and a half with a musician. That
tell me about the new music and the new album and the new tour, and get the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah, but I'm for one very grateful that Pete is making music again.
So can we find somewhere this California story? I was going to ask about that. But...
You can't. Basically, Teenage Kicks had an opportunity to go to California to record with a pretty famous producer. And that producer made many promises. One of those promises involved meeting and having a very, very big, the biggest, some might say, rock star in the world right now come see their show at South by.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't happen. And then recording in California commenced. And I think it was over a couple weeks. Things were a little rocky at the studio or at the house studio or whatever it was. And when, as I remember it, and I haven't gone back and re-listened to this interview, but when Pete had the files to send off for mastering, was informed by the person on the other end, this is all unusable. And had to completely redo the record on his own.
Oh, my God.
And this guy was just a waste of space, I guess.
So all that money, all that, it's a long way to the top.
Which would just crush you.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
And what era is this? This is like 2011? When did that eat?
12 or 13, I think. Yeah. Anyways.
Heartbreak.
Crazy story. But I remember finishing that interview and being like, wow, that was wild. I don't know if I can post that, like, because he's a very honest guy, honest guy.
Yep.
And
one of the things I love the most about this chat too is just just a good feeling of community.
Yeah.
Right. Again, of just the collaboration process in the Darling Congress songs, and it kind of sounds like through a few other things as well, and that's what you love to see.
Well, check it out. There's many Teenage Kicks, Cain and Abel, Ulysses and the Siren, M Code, Darling Congress, even his own solo album. The guy doesn't stop. The guy doesn't stop. Who do we have with us today?
Big thanks to Go Services, Inc.
Shout out.
And Bo's Bar and Stage.
Best place on earth.
And we've got some pretty cool dudes hanging out in another room over there.
Ryan and Riley, producers extraordinaire, which I believe you'll be learning a bit more about one of our producers in the next week or so.
Pretty excited about that.
When might that be?
Next week. On
next week, eh?
What day is that?
Wednesday.
The Road the Stage is produced by Ryan Cooley and Riley Sur-Yin at the Communal Creative Studios in Red Deer, Alberta. In partnership with Go Services, Inc., Sawback Brewing Co., Tourism Red Deer, and Bo's Bar and Stage.